You all asked for it, so today we're going to be repasting my Alienware m18 R1. For repaste, just a couple of things here. First of all, this may or may not void your warranty. Alienware used to allow us to open up our laptops and repaste stuff and do all that. I don't know about 2023, but yeah. Another thing is, don't do this unless you kind of feel at least a little bit comfortable doing this, because normally if it was thermal paste, I'd say go for it. But they're using element 31, which is a mixture of liquid metal and thermal paste. The liquid metal can run along to other components and kill the laptop. So yeah, just a warning out there. I don't want to be responsible for any laptops that break. This is just here for your educational purposes. With that said, let's turn on the computer, run some benchmarks, and show you guys the problem, and then we'll open it up. Alright, so I'm running Cinebench in the corner over there, and as you can see, here's the temperatures. P-Core 5 is hitting basically 100 degrees, while the other ones are pretty good actually, especially the E-cores. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to repaste, and hopefully this fixes the issue. Alright, so I'm going to be using PTM 7950 face change pads, which look like this. I actually ordered some more, but it didn't come in time. So if this is not enough, I will switch to PTM 7958 paste. This is face change paste. This is going to go on the CPU for sure, because CPU needs even contact. This I might put on the GPU if I don't have enough of this, but we'll see how that works out. Alright, the first thing you want to do is remove all these screws except for these two. These two don't actually come out, they just click in place. So you'll see in a second here. Alright, so now when you get to these, you're just going to loosen them until you hear a click. There's the click. Alright, so next you should have some room here to be able to pry open basically this part. So just carefully pry it open. If it doesn't come out, then it's probably not out all the way, so just loosen it some more. Alright, so now you're just gonna go ahead and get some leeway and just pry it open. So, there we go. And then, there we go. So now that you pried it open, you just slide it forward, and it comes right out. Alright, next, the most important step is to remove the battery power cable. So right here, you're just gonna disconnect this by pulling it towards the battery, like that. Alright, so the battery is disconnected. Next, we're going to do what's called a power drain. So just open your laptop real quick like this. Be very careful. And hold the power button for like 10 seconds. So just press it down, hold it for 10 seconds, and this should drain any residual power that's in the system. And now just go ahead and close it back up. So next, you're going to want to remove your SSDs. If you have all four, if not, just remove what you got. Next, we're going to remove the wireless card. Very carefully remove these antenna cables. They're very fragile, so just be careful with that. Honestly, I'm just going to leave my card in. The main point is to get those antennas out. Alright, next we're going to remove this piece right here, the I/O cover. So to remove the I/O cover, there are 3 screws here. So we're just going to disconnect these 3 screws. After removing these 3 screws, there are 2 screws here on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those. You can't miss which one's there, you'll know. And then next, we're going to remove this cable right here. So just very gently pull it out. And then once you pull it out, it's going to be stuck to this other cable here. Just very gently just do that. And that's it. So now what we're going to do is we need to lift these edges up. And there's tabs here. And just pull towards me. So just lift up everything very carefully. We don't want to break any tabs. There we go. Just might help lifting up the laptop a little bit. And then just lift all this up again. Just try to be gentle. There we go. Alright. And now we do this, and there we go. That part's out. Next, we need to remove this small heatsink here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. Alright, and then you should be able to just lift it up. There's probably, yeah, there's thermal pads on here. So be very careful removing these. So yeah, just be very careful. Make sure the thermal pads don't get destroyed. Might be good to have extra thermal pads while you're doing this, actually. And then there's one right here as well. So again, just be careful. We don't need to remove the RAM. We don't need to remove this. We'll just leave all this here. The whole board will just come out with the heatsink assembly. You'll see that in a second here. Alright, next we're going to go ahead and remove all the connectors here. So, alright, so what you're going to do is you're going to peel off this tape right here. There's a little bit of tape. So when you peel it off, it should become a little easier to move around. And now we're going to pull this that way with the latch. There's a second tape right here, so just make sure you grab it with your fingers and slowly pry it open like this. Just peel off the tape. When you peel off a tape, there is a latch here. Lift the latch up like this, and when you lift up the latch, this cable should easily come out. And there you go. So right here, this is the latch I was talking about. Hooked up here, you need to lift this latch up. And then when the latch is lifted up, you just pull it back like that. Next, we have this wire right here. So again, just like before, there's tape here that needs to be peeled off. So just slowly peel off the tape. With the tape peeled off, you just grab this and lift this up. Next, there's tape here too. Just slowly pry this open, and then this whole thing just comes off. You just pull it off. Here we have the same story. There's tape here and there's tape here. Just lift up the tape. There's this black tape here. You have to peel it off as well. Same story here. There's a latch that you need to lift up. So lift up the latch. It might help to use something like this plastic tool here to lift up the latch because it's really hard to get your fingers in there. This is the latch right here, this metal latch. You need to get a plastic tool and just pry it open. All right, so as you can see, the latch is up here. I have lifted it up, so now the connector just comes out. All right, so with the latch removed, you just pull it out that way and it comes right out. All right, we also have this connector here that goes all the way here. So same thing as the others. It's held by adhesive, so just slowly remove the adhesive. And again, you can use a plastic pry tool like this to just try and assist in getting it all out. So just slowly lift up the adhesive like that. So once the adhesive has been removed, for this connector, you just pull it out. Be very careful. I recommend being very gentle here. And there we go. Just came out. Next, we have some connectors. So we have the speaker connector here. It looks like we have some here that say motherboard. We have this one and this one. So we're going to disconnect those. So be very gentle. Just wiggle these out slowly like that. There's one over here. Might help using the plastic pry tool a little bit on this one because it's kind of stubborn. There we go. So I got it out like that. For these, it's very simple. You just lift up the plastic like that, and then you just pull these wires out. So lift up. So you just lift this plastic up, and then you pull out the wire like that. All right, next there's a bracket right here. Let me show you guys. So next we need to remove this metal bracket right here. There's these two screws. And then once you remove the screws, the bracket just falls off. So yeah, that's the bracket. As you can see, I'm gonna just put it right here. All right, next we have a bunch of screws to remove. So there's some here. I'll put a diagram on the video so you guys can see which ones to remove. You gotta remove the fan ones here. And then there's a bunch right here. So I'm gonna remove all these. So the screws are labeled in case you forget. They're like all labeled here, which is great. So you shouldn't have an issue knowing which one goes where. All right, so once you removed all the screws, you should be able to just lift up the board from the two fans like this. And just be careful because these are sticky. Be careful from all these here. Yeah, that should be it. Let's slowly lift this up and see if I missed anything. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. Looks like I missed one screw right here. That's why it's not coming up. This always happens to me. Okay, this one goes here. All right, I think that should be every single screw. So this should just come up. And looks like it does. Cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip this over. I'm gonna move this computer case out the way, but yeah, that's the heatsink. As you can see, that is a beefy heatsink. So yeah, let's go ahead and clear this off. All right, now it's time for us to remove the heatsink. Now before you do, I personally did not remove these cables, so make sure you remove all the fan cables. There should only be a few actually, since we're not removing every single one. There we go. All right. So there are a total of 8 screws, and they're all numbered here. So normally what you would want to do is remove them in reverse order. So 8 is undone first. And these are captive screws. What that means is they don't actually come out. So once you hear those clicks, that should be sufficient enough. So just be careful. 6, 5. So when you hear that click, you're pretty much done. All right, so with all the screws removed, now you should be able to lift from the board. So just be very careful doing this because we have liquid metal under there. Be super careful, and the board should just pop right off like that. And there we go. Wow, okay. All right, so here we go. As you can see, there's a barrier around here. I don't know if I should remove the barrier because the barrier might be making it harder for there to be contact. As you can see, this is where my CPU is overheating. That is not good. This is actually a lot better, but still. And looking at the chip sizes, I think I have enough PTM 7950 for both. So, right now, before you go grab alcohol, I was told by someone not to use alcohol because of the mixture. If you use alcohol to clean this, whatever is holding the liquid metal and the paste together, it breaks the bond and then it just spills everywhere. So, instead, we're going to try and get, well, they recommended a microfiber cloth, but let me see if I have some papers to do this. I gotta hand it to Alienware. These barriers are actually really good, and same with these. They did a really good job making it so that this doesn't leak out somewhere. So kudos to them. Kudos Alienware. You did a good job with this barrier. I'm very impressed actually. But unfortunately, whoever installed this thermal paste did not do a good job. Alright, so I got myself some Kimtech wipes here. Some Kim wipes, if you will. I don't know if this is gonna work. Let's just see what happens. I'm just gonna wipe it off. Oh yeah, it does wipe off, okay. So I'm just gonna wipe this off as much as I can. Alright, so another trick is to get a Q-tip like this and just wipe it off. Again, I am not using any alcohol yet. We're just trying to get most of this off, so this is a good way to just try to clean off as much as you can. Be very careful when you get rid of your Q-tip because you don't want liquid metal everywhere. So what I like to do is just use the other side. So, like I said, just make sure the part you used is not going to leak anything and then just clean it off like this. Alright, I've gotten to the point where I feel like I can use a little bit of alcohol. So what I'm going to do is I have 70% isopropyl alcohol. I'm just going to slightly dab my Q-tip in the alcohol. And now I'm just going to clean around the surfaces here with this alcohol dabbed Q-tip. So it looks like the liquid metal isn't really coming off completely. So one thing you want to be very careful about when doing this is whenever you lift up liquid metal from the barrier, do not let it fall out on a different part of the component. Now, Alienware has done a good job at protecting your computer from getting liquid metal on it, but you can never be too sure because only the GPU and CPU portion is protected. Alright, as you can see, I've done the best I can to clean the CPU and GPU. So now we're going to clean the heatsink. Now, I've kind of already started to clean the heatsink accidentally. Alright, so I kind of already cleaned off this side. But basically, for this heatsink, you're going to do something similar. You don't have to be as careful because obviously there's no electronics here. So I'm going to get some alcohol and just wipe this off like this. As you can see, the alcohol Q-tip does a pretty good job at cleaning most of this off. So just be very careful not to drop any of this anywhere else. So now I'm going to take an alcohol wipe and I'm just going to wipe as much off as possible as I can. Alright, that looks good enough. So now we're just going to go ahead and apply the thermal paste, in my case the PTM 7950, and then apply the heatsink back on. Alright, so now it's time for the PTM $79.50. So let me just see if I have enough that should cover that. Yeah, it looks like I should be fine. I can cut this piece. Okay. So this is phase change pads, and again, this is where you would apply either thermal paste on top or you apply these. So I'm gonna apply these. That looks perfect. All right, so we are done in terms of the thermal paste and everything. All right, so we're just gonna align to the best of our ability these screws. So now we're just gonna tighten everything in the order that it says here. And then now I'm just gonna tighten everything fully because I didn't have it fully tightened. So just make sure you tighten everything. So now we're just gonna work backwards. So we're gonna put this back in the computer and assemble everything again. All right, so now we're gonna assemble the computer back. These thermal pads are very flimsy. These go here. All right, good thing I saw that right now actually before I assembled this thing. That would have been horrible if I assembled this and didn't see that. So now, just again, be very careful with all these wires. You wanna make sure you don't get them stuck somewhere. Just align the holes again, be very careful. Make sure all of the ribbon cables are above the motherboard, so now's a good time to stick all these out. You want all your cables to be above the motherboard when you seat it down. Okay, I think I got everything over here on this side. So quick check. This ribbon cable, this ribbon, battery, 2 antenna wires for the Wi-Fi. Oh, see, here's one right here. There we go. All right, speaker wire there, 2 cables here, 2 cables here. So we got everything. So I'm just gonna screw everything back in. All right, so next, don't forget about this bracket here. So now we're just gonna plug in the wires. Let's make sure you insert everything correctly. All right, so these ribbon cables, you just insert them. All right, so I've connected everything besides the battery. So just do one last check to make sure you plugged everything in, the fans, these cables, make sure everything's seated properly. And then, all right, next we're gonna install this heatsink right here. So basically you're gonna align everything, make sure it's all lined up. All right, now that the heatsink is installed, we're gonna go ahead and install the plastic cover. So this one's pretty simple. Just make sure to lift up the laptop properly from both sides, and it should click in from the bottom. So don't forget to plug in the cable. And then once you plug in the cable, let's just try to route this where the sticky stuff was. All right, and then now we just need to plug in the screws. So the longer screws go. All right, do one last check, make sure all the cables are plugged in. And then finally, if everything looks good, we're gonna plug in the battery finally. So it's the last thing you wanna plug in once everything's done. So I just plugged in the battery, now it's good to go. And then we're gonna install this. So it's a little tricky, but we'll get it. You gotta be careful with these little pieces right here. This is the one thing I don't like about the M18 is the way they designed this. But everything else is, I like it. You wanna get these in first because these are a pain sometimes to get back in. See? It's just spinning, it's not in. So the location isn't correct on this side. Let me see if this side works out. Okay, this one's good. It's tightening. So if it doesn't screw in, just move it around, like the plastic piece around a little bit until, there we go, I think I got it in. Oh yeah, okay, cool. So now you just wanna click it a little bit and then we're gonna put the screws in. Hopefully it turns on because normally you wanna test it to make sure everything's working. But I'll just assume mine's fine. All right, and now just try to click it in to see if there's any parts that aren't clicked in. And now we're gonna try to turn it on and see if it works. All right, so the first time it's gonna boot, it's gonna take a long time to boot and you're gonna see this screen, which is fine. I'm gonna click continue. I think it took mine like 7-8 minutes to boot. So yeah, if it takes a very long time to boot, don't worry about it. So the good news is the laptop works since it's powering on. And then, all right, moment of truth. I'm kind of scared, honestly, but let's see what happens. Now it's yeah, it's still thermothralling. Alright, well, that's unfortunate. But this is without an undervolt, so I guess we'll see what happens when I undervolt the CPU. Interestingly, I did score 35,000, but so I guess performance is maybe slightly better than before. We'll try undervolting a little more and see what happens. Alright, let's see. Looks like we're still thermothrottling, unfortunately, even with a minus 145 undervolt. But the temperatures seem a little bit better in the sense that even though it's hitting 100, it's not as bad as it was before, where it was just constantly 100. It does go between 99 and 100. And yeah, we're scoring 35,000, so I mean, performance is definitely better than before, which is interesting. Well, there you have it. My temperatures haven't really gotten any better, although it doesn't seem to hit 100 as badly. My performance has gone up a bit, but hopefully this helps you repaste your Alienware. Please let me know in the comments which paste you use and your before and after temps, because I'm curious. My PTM 7950 is pretty old, so when I get the new one, maybe I'll try this one more time. But yeah, hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.